My guest today is Christopher Kenna, the chairman and founder of the Brand Advance Group, which he started to help the world's largest brands and agencies reach diverse communities at scale with authenticity. Multi-talented and multi-skilled, he's an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker, a board advisor, a military veteran, a father, and has been named one of the top 100 LGBT executives. I met him when he came to speak at a senior leadership group I was working with, and his story just bowled me over. Frankly, they should make a movie of it, and I'm sure they probably will. But in my opinion, he epitomizes what it is to be a purpose-driven leader and has the fearlessness that comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you want. So I'm really lucky that he's agreed to come on and tell us some of how he does it. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me. And what an introduction.
Well, it's all true, isn't it? Yeah. So can you just explain a little bit about what you actually do? So what is your work? What do you do?
Simply, we make sure that brands reach everybody. Everyone that could possibly. So I'm sat here in a WeWork drinking out from a tin cup. If tin cups was our client, we'd make sure that everyone that possibly wants to have a drink from a tin cup has access to the ad, is seen in the ad, that the ad is not blocked from the media that they find themselves in, and too often, if you're not straight and white, then your media's blocked, or there are other things that are in the way that stop that tin cup ad from reaching me as a black gay guy. So that's what we do. Really simply, we just make sure that clients can reach everybody, because that's the whole point of marketing, isn't it? To sell as many tin cups as possible. I'm really going on with this tin cup, but it was a clue.
I love a metaphor or analogy. Yeah, analogy or a metaphor. I love analogy or a metaphor, whichever one it is. Yeah. So basically, you exist to make advertising reach wider audiences. And what does it mean to reach diverse communities at scale with the authenticity? Just unpack that a little bit more for us.
Yeah, the authenticity is really continuing to do it. You can't hire authenticity, you can't buy it, and no one campaign is authentic. It's a bit of a buzzword, really, if we're totally honest. But if you continue to stick your ads in black media, if you every so often, portray one of your black customers in the creative for that ad, then, and you continue to do that, not just on Black History Month, but every day of the year, then authenticity comes from showing up and continuing to show up, really.
Yeah. And Chris, what's the why? What is the why? Why do you do what you do?
Oh, gosh. What's the best way to say the why? I've said it plenty of times, but I have two kids. One's black and one's white, and I'll be damned if I'm going to go through life letting the industry that I love and I think can do so much good in the world only speak to one of my kids and not the other, and block access to my son seeing the same ads as my daughter just because he's black and he finds himself in black media, or doesn't portray him as a consumer in the creative just because it might be a little bit more difficult than what they deem as mainstream or whatever. There's 1,001 reasons, but for me, there's 1,001 excuses. And the why is the world needs it. I'm not saying the world needs me. Gosh, no, I'm sure it could do quite happily without me, but it needs to start doing things correctly. Our industry, I often say that our industry is the very definition of insanity, because we have a lot of big events. For anyone that's not in advertising, we have big events like Cannes and Ad Week and all these big events. And every year, everybody talks about doing stuff differently, reaching new communities, being more inclusive in their media by being more inclusive in their campaigns and their creative, and who's not just who's in front of the camera, but they're using, black-owned businesses or LGBT or people with different abilities to make the ads as well as be in them. But the reason I say it's insanity is because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. I say it all the time, and I'm just drilling it home that that's what the industry does. Says all these sort of new end games, but actually does hires the same people and puts media in the same places and continuously uses the same behind the camera teams to make them, and so how can we get to a different output if we're just going to do the same thing? So yeah.
And how do you do things differently then? How are you tackling that problem?
Just by including all the different communities that are in a certain place. So we work across 32 countries. Let's take the UK. I'm sat in London now, and normally I'm sat in New York, but both cities, over half is non-white. So how can you possibly spend a whole year making ads that only show white people when your head office is sat in London? And then look around the communities of the UK. We've got Indian, we've got Pakistani, we've got LGBTQ plus. 12.7 million people in this country have a registered disability, but about 3% of ads show people with disabilities. It's it's an obvious, and I know in my intro you said a little bit of where I come from. I come from being in and out of care to joining the army when I was 16 and 9 months. I was in the army till I was 26. And then I sort of went into media for a little bit. I was really rubbish, but I presented for a little bit, like MTV and stuff like that. And all the time, I personally, I don't understand when things don't make sense. Why something's just done because somebody 40 years ago decided that was the way it was going to be done. Do you know what I mean? And somebody from one part of the community decided it, and now everything evolves around that. I don't understand it. A problem for me is two planks. The very first problem I ever solved in my life was, two barrels, a plank, and a piece of rope, and I had 5 mates, and I had to get them across the river without none of us getting wet. Otherwise, we'd have to do press ups till our eyes bled. So, it was a simple problem and a simple solution. Tie the barrels together, use the plank, go get across one at a time. I don't understand why problem solving isn't made that simple to fix most problems, because really, when you break it down, there's always a simple solution. Brand Advance has created their Brand Advance group. We've got a consultancy, we've got an ad server, an ad network, we've got a creative agency that's made up of these very communities. There were simple problems to solve. Just, it took a pandemic and the murder of George Floyd and many others before the whole world seemed to have woke up all on the same day and went, oh, okay, I can see there's a bit of a problem now. There's a bit of a privilege problem. There's a bit of an advertising portrayal problem. There's a whole host of problems in the world right now. We all know that. But these ones can be fixed quite easily. It
Yeah.
doesn't. I'm not the most intelligent person on earth. I'm not saying I'm dumb, but it really didn't take that much to come up with solutions that, I'm very fortunate. I stuck it out there, and now we have over 100 people in 5 countries all working towards that goal. And it just so happens that goal leaves the world a better place. But if I'm totally honest, I'm doing it for commercial reasons as well. I'm a black person and I've got money in my pocket, and I know lots of other black people that have money in their pockets, and how a brand would not want to reach that money baffles me. So I built a company to help them do it, the brands, but also we're more focused on the agencies, helping the agencies to do this at scale, because then they'll do it for all brands.
So that's the kind of like, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll never go hungry again. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
And so, what if all goes well? Just what is the vision? Like, what's the vision of success?
Oh gosh, selling and living on a yacht in Cannes. No. Um, oh, do you know the honest vision of success is, and I mean, I really will have sold well before this point, is that we're not needed. Like, should you need a specialist to help you reach half of society. Like, if you aren't reaching everyone as a marketeer, whether they work in an agency, whether they work for a brand, if they are not sticking that client's product in front of as many possible people that could want to buy it, then they're doing it wrong. Like, they're just,
Mm,
that's marketing done wrong. What way the way we partner with agencies and help them to reach every pocket of society, whether it's across insights, whether it's across media or across creative, we're just helping them do marketing right, because they've been doing it wrong for all this time, thinking that
mm, mm.
ABC1 is the only consumer worst thinking about, whereas other communities don't fall into these categorizations, or thinking that you need to block all LGBT content because it might be sexually explicit, or block all black content because you might come across some that talks about gangs or glory, like you're just cutting off 2/3 of the world from,
Mm, mm,
you know,
mm.
and I'm sure on behalf of the shareholders of all these brands, they want to grow and to reach new people, and yeah, so the end game is to not be
Yeah.
around, but I want to definitely dip out well before then.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And listen, I mean, I said that I think you're a really fantastic example of a purpose-led leader, but tell us a little bit about where it all began. Did you have it all? Was it all very clear from the start? Tell us about what you were like as a child, a teenager.
Oh gosh, nobody's ever really asked me that. All right, do you know what I used to do when I was a kid? Because I was, like I said, I was in and out of care. I used to. I think the first company I ever set up was in my head, and it was a Smarties company. And I used to get Smarties because they used to give Smarties to everyone in the children's home, and I used to get everyone around the table, and then I would do deals. With the end game was that my pack of Smarties had to all be one color. So I would do deals with
Mm,
everyone to get them to give me their colors that were the matching, and I would make a whole pack. And like, I think I did it about 3 times in my life, and I attempted it about 100 times. And I remember just being so happy with myself, and I felt like, oh, you're the man. You just negotiated and your whole pack of Smarties, and it had to fill back to the brim. So like, and it was a real struggle because I used to eat them as well. But and and then the second company I ever set up, my God, I've never told anyone this. So I had a Commodore 64, right? Because, well, I was in care and nobody gave anybody, and I didn't have parents to tap for a PlayStation. So I had a Commodore 64 when everybody else was on Sega Mega Drives and Game Boys, if you remember them. So and I somebody gave me a big book. I think it was one of the social workers gave me this big, massive book, and it was basically Bill Gates' book that he wrote about how he programmed Windows, how he made Windows. Yeah. Um, and so I made a computer. I made, using my Commodore 64, I managed to teach myself and wrote a program that could speak to me, but it obviously could only speak to me with what I told it. If I type this, say this back to me. If I type this, say this back to me. And then I developed it so I used it to itemize all of the stuff in my room in this children's home, everything I could get my hands on. And I programmed it all in there that it would know the cost of it, etc. And then if I wanted to sell it, I could type it into the computer, and then it would say what was on the inventory ready for selling. And if I sold this much, I could hit this target. And I programmed in like daily targets and stuff like that. It was really rubbish. And the computer was called Mastertron. And I basically, I literally sat on it for hours every day, every single day, for about, I would say, for at least 2 or 3 years, from like age 8 through to like 11, and probably is. Um, and then just grew out of it and stopped doing it. Yeah. And now when I think about it, it has sort of everything I'm doing now. I love building new systems. We've just built an insights platform called Cultural Intelligence. Now, I didn't program it because programming's a lot different to what Bill Gates' book told me. But I love the building something that other people can go and use, and it fixes a problem, or it cleverly tells them data that they can go and use and do something that's real, you know? So yeah, I think little did I know back then, but it was sort of the first iteration of you're going to go away and build stuff that people can use. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say it's sort of like a purposeful visionary, isn't it? It's thinking strategically, but with something that's actually going to help other people. So it's like a visionary and altruism wrapped into one. And I guess the whole Smarty thing was really what was the stuff that sparked joy there? The negotiating or the deal making or what?
Yeah, yeah, getting people because nobody wanted to give any of their Smarties. So being able to talk them into, I'll give you these three yellows, but I need your four oranges because I've got 20 oranges already and I've got three yellows and two blues left. And do you know what I mean? Like that whole negotiating and deal making and and winning. Which, like I said, I didn't win that often, not the whole pack anyway. I used to get really close and then I'd just start eating them because I'd get frustrated with people. But yeah, yeah, I think that was it. And
Yeah.
like, and like
Yeah.
those like strategy games as well. Like when I was a kid, I used to play chess for the school actually, and I used to play. There was a game called Final Fantasy, which was like a strategy game where and I used to love that. Um, yeah, gosh,
So how much
go on, sorry.
sorry. How much do you think those things play into your everyday life now in terms of what sparks joy, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, saying it out loud now, loads. I've never really even thought of it. People don't normally ask me these questions. They normally ask me what it's like to be a black CEO. Or, do you know what I mean? Not that I'm complaining, but that's normally the questions. The Yeah, I think everything. It feels like, do you know, I've thought this before. I feel like my life was Slumdog Millionaire. You remember when that came out, and it showed you all the little things that happened that led to knowing the answers and winning the million. Mine's been a bit like that, leading to brand advance or to something. The fact that I had to the same ex-wife two different colored kids, just happened. She's German, blonde haired, blue eyed. My daughter's blonde haired, blue eyed, and my son looks like a mini me. The Right through to even the army, and like that taught me the discipline and and integrity and stuff like that. Then the stuff I've just talked about when I was a kid and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, like I know you've used the word leadership here for this, and I don't think I'm there yet. I Let me put it this way: I think I've been a bloody good boss, but I've got a lot of work to do on leadership yet because, and I've been very honest about it. I've made lots of mistakes, and I've recently got myself diagnosed as an adult. Well, not got myself diagnosed. I was diagnosed as ADHD, and I sort of knew it because I'd get very bored of things. Once it's done, it's done. I'm done now. Like you can continue, and yeah, it makes money, but so go make more money with it. I'm over it. I want to go fix something else. I always need something to do. It used to get me in trouble in school because I just get bored. Like they were talking about something that they were talking about 2 weeks ago, and I'm just like, you told us that. Like, tell me something new. I want to learn something else. Um, and so, yeah, I think I've still got a lot to work on with leadership because
Yeah.
leadership's different.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you can be a good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I work a lot with leaders, and there's a very big difference between being great at what you do and like building something, or being a visionary and being a great innovator, and then leading. Like leading is a whole set of skills that nobody really teaches you until you're there, and then it's like these unwritten rules, and it's a lot about the soft skills like persuading and influencing, asking, don't telling. The world that we're in, we used to be like in a control command world. You be able to control, and in the army, you'll know that control command, it works in that. But in this volatile, what they say, the VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, leaders today, they have to be nimble, they have to be agile, they don't know all the answers, they have to be able to be empowering and inclusive and use the best talents around them. So really interesting. But I just want to go back to, because you do, I mean, talk about Slumdog Millionaire. That's my point about your life. It has been a bit of a movie in the making. So you were brought up in a in care in a children's home, and then did what happened? You joined the army out of that, or what?
Yeah. I went straight to the army. So I sort of went in and out of care. Would go back to biological mother and then go back. Um, and then, yeah, I joined the army the second that they would let us. And actually, at the time, I wasn't meant to join the army for a year later, but I hopped on the train. Well, I ran away and hopped on a train and went to Blackpool and then turned up at the army recruitment office, and they were like, do you know what, if you'd have turned up a week ago we would have had to tell you to go away, but we've got a new scheme that's with people that are in care that you can join a little bit earlier. You won't be able to go out onto active duty or anything until you're 18, but we can take you through basic training. You can do your maths and your English in the army as well, because I didn't have any GCSEs when I didn't go to school for the last year. So I didn't get to sit any exams or anything like that, not one exam. And so, yeah, I joined, and it gave me everything I was looking for, I think, like family and belonging, and do you know what I mean? And other people that thought like me, and like how can I say this without sounding like I've got a skinhead and a bulldog on my arm? I'm very proud to be from this country. Like, I really am. Like, yeah, I've had the stupid people sometimes that are like, where you from? Like, oh, Manchester. Oh, where you're actually from though? Yeah, no, it's still Manchester. That I've had that a lot because of the color of my skin. But yeah, so like the army was perfect for me. Now the flip side to that, and you've just mentioned it, was it taught me one way of being a leader, and I was bloody good in the army. Like I progressed fast, both rank, but also to I was an army physical training instructor in Germany. That's where I met my ex-wife. My two kids are half German, half English. My son's literally just hopped on a plane back to Germany today. It taught me the command leadership. Walk in the room, know what everybody's job is, know what you need to happen, tell everybody, and walk back out, and just trust it'll get done. And when I first started Brand Advance, the very first company, I mean, there's 11 companies. That tells you how much my ADHD is. Literally, there's 11 companies now in the group, and we've only been going just under 4 years. But now I've had to learn that I can't just go into a meeting, tell everybody, and walk out. Very much like you said. And if you're in a meeting with 8 people, you sort of got to speak in 8 different ways to 8 different people. Some do want you to tell them what to do. Others don't want you to tell them what to do and want it to be a collaborative approach. And I'm still learning and have struggled with that. Just,
Yeah.
you know, understand people are complicated. My gosh, like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually think the world would be so much easier if there was just a whole load of me's. I could do
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think leadership's a journey, isn't it? I mean, a lot of the studies that I do about leadership, one of the theories is it starts with self leadership, and that goes back to understanding doing the reflection and having the awareness of who you are and what you stand for and what do you want to do? What's the impact that you find meaningful? So it is a journey. And sometimes earlier on in life, you don't have enough experience or data to kind of figure that out,
yeah.
so it isn't a constantly evolving thing. Yeah. So you went, you joined the army, but then tell us about what did you have a plan from army to founder? I mean, what happened?
No, gosh, no. I'd love to say, yeah, it was all planned out, but that would be just a lie. Um, I mean, the army, so I had an accident in the army that seen me in a coma for 8 weeks, and when I woke up out the coma, I have epilepsy now. So that was the end of the army, basically, because holding a rifle while having an epileptic fit is not safe for anybody around you. I might survive it, but nobody else will. So, so yeah, definitely had to find another career. And then, like I said, I fell into media. Um, and really quickly on how that happened, I was out in a nightclub. Nightclubs in Manchester can stay open all night till like 11 o'clock the next day because they do have 24-hour drinking there, believe it or not. And I come out of a nightclub about 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. The whole world's going to church and just being normal, and I'm still drunk. Walking home, and then a modeling scout came up to me and my mate as we were walking through town to get to back to my apartment, and yeah, and said, "Do you want to? You should come and do modelling." And we sort of laughed at them drunkenly and took the cards. Went and got pizza. Then I woke up the next day and there was three things sort of laying next to me. One was a pizza, a slice of pizza, a box, and this is the truth, I'm not lying. A slice of pizza, a box, and this card was stuck on top of the pizza slice. And I was like, "What the hell is this from?" I phoned my mate, and he's like, "Yeah, they came and said, do we want to do modelling?" I was like, "Should we just phone it and see what they say?" So we phoned it. The next weekend, I went and did a test shoot in Manchester, and they just took like headshots and stuff. I'm sure if you scour the internet, you will see them headshots. And then a week later, I got my first ad. So it's basically, do you remember when Virgin Media actually was Virgin Media and it was its own thing? Do you know what I mean? It had its own channel.
Yeah.
It might still have, but it had its own channels and stuff. And they were doing a Virgin Media advert. And I'd been chosen to be in this ad. So I went to this studio where they were, and it was like, oh my God, it was like a proper studio with proper cameras and stuff. And so I shot this ad. And while I was waiting, there was a lot of waiting around, and it was a female director. And lots of people, I suppose, my very first, this is why I said Slumdog Millionaire, because the first time, I didn't like how some of the camera guys, you got to think, I'm 40 now. So, and this was like, I was 26 at the time. So it was a little time ago. Not that that's an excuse for anybody to be derogatory, but the camera guys sort of kept speaking down to the director. And for me, I'd just come from the military. So I'm like, she's the colonel and, yous are the cannon fodder. Like, why are you do you know what I mean? Like, it didn't make sense and I didn't like it. So anyway, there was a guy sat next to me and I started saying it to him. And I'm like, I don't like that. And I didn't know, but it was her husband. And her husband was the channel manager for one of them. It was called Price Drop TV. And like, the ones where you just sell a bracelet for 20 minutes and hope people on the other end are buying it. And anyway, we got on. He used to be in the army for a few years, or I don't actually, I think he was in the cadets. He was just bigging himself up. But uh, but we just got on and he liked that I'd said that about his wife and he was telling me about the industry and how male focused and blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, "Do you want to come and do a screen test next week for Price Drop TV? I like you, come and do it." And so I went and I got the job and I did that for 6 months. And while I was there, I auditioned for MTV and got myself an agent and then did MTV, did a few other things as well. And then to finish it off, and I know I'm waffling, but I got offered my own show on Sky, my own chat show called The Chris Kenna Show. Really vain. But so I did that, and about 2 months in, I couldn't get rid of how them guys were speaking to the female director. And I was like, I could do one better. So the very first incorporated company I did was I incorporated a company and then did a deal with the channel to buy my show off the channel. And then I would make my show and sell it back to them. And they
Wow.
sold it to me for like, I don't know, about 100 grand or something. And then I made a production company. 3 months later, they cancelled the show, and I was stuck with all these people that I'd just hired. Um, but that was like the genesis. Me and my partner Dean, who have been together like 15 years now, I had met him in that time, and he helped me come and run it. And we managed to do a lot more documentaries. We did a series about Canal Street, about people that live and work on Canal Street and stuff like that. And yeah, and that went. In
Yeah.
the end, we weren't making enough money to keep going, so I stopped that, came to London, and that's where Brand Advance sprouted from.
But I mean, just amazing. I mean, anybody listening, you can see why I said it's like, a movie in the making. Yeah, Slumdog Millionaire. I want to say Forrest Gump, but I don't mean Forrest Gump. But it's just like these big life. It's these big, big things that happen, isn't it? So what I was going to say is, I mean, to just go and say, actually, I don't like that. I want to do it on my own terms. I want to buy the company, et cetera, et cetera. That is kind of like fearlessness, is it? Or what is that? What is that gives you that confidence and to do that?
I think shareholders and advisory boards now would call that, or on my companies would call it stupidity. But do you know? Do you know the one thing I think that I might have over other people? That because lots of people can do this and they're a lot cleverer and they could probably make less mistakes. I started with nothing, so the very worst that could happen is I go back to where I came from. That's the very worst. Do you know what I mean? And I know I can survive, and I'll do it all over again. I'll do it 10 times if I have to, you know. And I'm very fortunate that I'm having a very good run at it this time, and employing a lot of people and getting to live in the States and stuff. So that's it. That's all. So yeah, is it fearless? Yeah. Is it stupidity? Yeah. Am I a bit of a dumbass? Yeah. Like, yeah, I've got the thing that holds me back from being as fearless as I would be is, I've got responsibility now, to all, not just to all of our staff globally, but to their families, to shareholders, to my clients of not blowing their money. And, so that does stop you being as fearless as you would want. But still, we're, a lot of people told me not to make another company a consultancy when I already had an ads network, but I did anyway. And then I made a creative agency, and then I founded about 6 magazines now as well. Because every time I see a voice that's not got enough people speaking up for it, then I'll create a magazine to fill that void. And we own quite a bit of media now, and just yeah, fearless is the nice way of putting it. I just the worst that could happen. That's always what's in the back of my mind. I think if you can get over that, for anybody that wants to do anything, if you can, wherever you are right now, before you come up with the idea, or you've come up with the idea, but before you embark on it, the worst that can happen is you go back to there. I mean, I know people will say, well, you could owe money and blah, blah, blah. You can only pay what you can only pay. Do you know what I mean? If I owe £1 million and I have to go back to a 60 grand a year job, I can only pay what I can only pay. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can get your mind
Yeah.
around that, then
Yes.
you sort of put yourself in a good place, I think. That's what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, but then, I suppose a lot of people. I work with a lot of people who are very high achieving, but also very self-critical. And I think often the two things go hand in hand. Or they have self-doubt, or they, imposter syndrome, etc. So do you ever experience self-doubt or imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with it if you do?
Gosh, if this is a psychologist, or if you are even a psychologist, then I'm probably going to sound very narcissistic. But no, I don't really get. So, well, actually, that's a lie. Okay, I I get nervous about silly things, but not the things I should get nervous about. So coming up with an idea, I'm totally believing in it from day one, and going in and selling it to anybody. Do not get self doubt about that. But if I'm sat in a restaurant and they serve me a meal and it's really bad, I really don't want to complain about it. Don't want to. Hate it. Hate the thought of it. I would rather eat it and hate every mouthful than complain about it. So I don't, and it's like I, so silly little things I get embarrassed about. My partner will say, I hate paying for something because I hate going to the counter. I don't know why. I just, every so often, sometimes I don't, but sometimes I just get this fear of going to the counter and speaking. Like, I don't know why. Whereas stick me, in front of, we're about to do this thing called the iFest, which will be the biggest sort of event that Brand Advance has put a stage on at. And it's basically a music festival turned into an entrepreneurs festival. Ourselves and Great Entrepreneur Awards are running it. And I'll be standing in front of 3 to 5 thousand people talking like I am now to you. And I relish that, love it. Just love to get to, I love that, there will be other people's kids that are very much like mine, my son being 17, that are just looking at that stage going, oh my God, I can do that. Like, step aside, I can do it better, wanting to buy the stage off me and sell it back to me, put their own content on it, whatever it is. So in answer to your question, I don't really get imposter syndrome, but I do. It seems to manifest itself outside, at silly things.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know why, and maybe I need help.
Yeah, it's almost like a fear of awkwardness or something. I mean, listen, it's quite classic that some men, the cliche is that some men refuse to ask for directions, like, so it's almost like that. It's like sometimes, yeah, I don't know what that is, feeling of whatever it is. Yeah. Yeah. And what I wanted to ask you also is like, what is you've had many different, like, I guess, obstacles or pivots or turns in your life, how do you or how have you navigated obstacles or things that problems or issues that have come up?
I just go straight through them. It's the God's honest truth, like I've already told you, I've got a lot of learning to do on how to go around things and how to, it's a journey I'm on right now, seeing counselor and seeing people that, people like yourself that can coach and stuff like that. It's something I'm doing right now. But because I tend to bulldoze through it, because it's, it feels like, and maybe it's a bit of a chip on my shoulder now, but it's always felt like everyone's bloody told me I can't do everything I've ever decided to do. Do you know what I mean? Even the choices that weren't mine, like I can't go to parents' evening because I haven't got parents. Do you know what I mean? Like, or you can't go to prom because, you're in care and you're going to cause trouble because all the care kids cause trouble. Or, do you know what? It's really weird. Even today, so I like cars. So I've got like I was driving today with my son in an Audi R8. So it's a really flash, looking supercar. And the police pulled me over and then just got me out of the car with my son as well. This is only today. Mr. Copper, if you're listening, you can now know how it made me feel, and I was watching and they said it was a checkpoint. It was just as you went into, and if anybody's been driving around London today, you might have even seen the checkpoint. It's right before you go to Leicester Square. And they sort of, like, there was no reason for it other than to ask why two black guys were driving that sports car, and he sort of alluded to it as well, because he told me this thing, his colleague around the corner had said I'd come around the corner fast. You cannot go fast in Leicester Square. There are a trillion people and too many cars blocking it. Like, it was just a lie. And then it was sort of, I watched all these other people just drive straight past. And, I did look through the window because I'm in the business of, inclusion, etc. And it was like, and then they pulled over one other guy and he was an Indian guy in a car, and you're just like, so these things, they spur me and they stick a fire in my belly, and I need to change it for my son. So look, when he buys his car, on my money probably, he's not going to get pulled over just for that. You know what I mean? Pull him over if his light's not
Yes.
working, but not pull him over because you feel, that you need to ask why you're driving that car. And advertising can do that. And so, yeah, barriers, I tend to bulldoze through them. I've got better with my etiquette now. I've got better with my words now. When you come from
Yeah.
council estates, you sort of tend to talk like you come from one. And I can be a bit cleverer with my wording now, and it doesn't need to, I used to get angry quite a lot as a kid, and I never could understand why. And then I got a bit of help when I was older, and it was, I couldn't think fast enough of something to say. So then it would just go to, "Ugh," okay, I don't, to a self-defense,
Frustration.
to a
Yeah.
frustration. Now I'm getting better at that. I can calm myself down and talk and even negotiate if I have to. But um, barriers, blocks, I've just had to learn to either ignore them and walk with my head down as if I didn't see there was a blockage there. Do you know what I mean? Things
Hmm.
down to when I go into a meeting. I actually had one out in Cannes that this happened on. I'm pulling up, go into Cannes, go into this meeting, and just all introductions and stuff. And I didn't say my title. I just said, Chris. And then I went to speak, and the person that was running the round table was like, "Oh, let's wait for your boss to get here, and then we can all speak together." Because I mean, Cannes is a who's who of white middle-aged males, to be honest. But things like that. That technically is a barrier. It should have wobbled me, And some people, and I've got a lot of mates that have started businesses, whether they're black or LGBT or they're Indian, etc., or they're Muslim. And sometimes you do get wobbled by it, but I tend to just bulldoze straight through it. In that instance, I just carried on talking,
Yeah.
waiting, and just kept looking them in the eye to see the point when it dropped that I was the CEO and the other 30 people that were in that room were my staff. Do you know what I mean? Because we took a
Yeah.
lot of people out to camp.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
Yeah.
answers it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like the pretty woman moment, isn't it? It's like,
Yes.
yeah. Anyway, it's probably not quite like that, but anyway,
Oh no,
yeah.
I
And so
love
what?
that film. When she walks into the shop and says, "Bad mistake." Do you work on commission? Big mistake. Yeah, love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So listen, what I always ask my guests is, who are their heroes or inner champions? Like who is your childhood hero, etc. Because you often share a lot of values with those people. So I'm just curious to know who yours are.
Um, okay, so I think, let me think. I don't really have a childhood one, if I'm totally honest, because there wasn't anyone. Yeah, I think, oh, what was his name on Channel 4? There was a black presenter. His name's totally gone out of my head. I apologize. But I did used to, he was the only black presenter I ever used to see. And I used to be like, oh, I like that there's a black presenter and he looks like me. So that's probably the only one. Then, but more recently, I've got quite a few now. I've got people in the industry. People, let me do a shout out for Mr. Dakin, Jerry Dakin, and if you haven't had him on here, you should. He's basically he's always like head of media in certain brands, and every time he moves to another brand, they become our client. So obviously, I'm going to love him for that. So his sticking me at the very beginning, putting me on stages that my underprivilege would never have got me near. I needed the white media guy to say, actually, if I'm coming on stage, Chris is coming on with me. And, once you give me the platform, and I'm sure this is the same for many people that are listening, once you give us the platform, we'll do it ourselves. We don't need a handhold. And just, give me, I don't know that these rooms exist. Nobody's ever told me.
Hmm.
Yeah, we all know
Mm.
that most
Mm.
industries are nepotism and a whole load of other things. So yeah, Mr. Dakin, Jay Dakin, definitely. And then, a lot of and I know this sounds a little bit smoke up backside, but a lot of our clients have really, not only have they come to us as clients, but also, given me and other members of my staff opportunity to tell others what we're doing with them and to say, we're doing this because not just because it's the right thing to do, but commercial. So they've been my heroes. And then Wakanda. Black Panther. Like that was a turning point for me and my son when we went to watch that and just watching his face. I didn't watch the screen the first time. I had to watch it again when he wasn't there because I spent the whole time looking at him and just seeing it in
Yeah.
his eyes, like seeing him, seeing superheroes. loads of
Yeah.
superheroes, all that looked like him. Like I lived that whole movie
Yeah.
through him without the most I seen of the movie was the opening and closing credits because the rest of my time was looking at him. And he doesn't know I went to
Oh,
halfway through as well because I started tearing up. I didn't want him to see. But yeah, I think that was a big point as well. And I continue to meet
yeah.
potential heroes and new heroes every day. People that do good, and I don't mean like chaining yourself to a tree good. I mean just eh, simple things, like when somebody you're in a meeting and somebody in that meeting says, "Oh, so these words are on our blacklist," and somebody else in that meeting that's not black or brown stops them and says, "Actually, we don't really like using that word. Blacklist is bad and whitelist is good. It's an inclusion list." It happened a couple of weeks ago. And it just took me, and I was just like, "You're my bloody hero." Like, just that. Do you know what I mean? So I don't have a big one. I'm
Yes.
sure people come with a real big one, and I don't. But I continuously find new heroes, if you can call them that, new people that inspire me each day, even down to people like yourself giving me space on a podcast. Do you know what I mean? Like that for me, if we all just do bits of this, you don't need to fly in on a cape. If we all just do our bit, or if when we all get to a point like I am now with business privilege, if we stick our foot in the door, if we go to schools and talk about it and go to unis, if we use what we've got, you don't need to give it all away, but you can definitely give something back and just prop open, pull up, mentor down, whatever it needs to be. I think they're heroes for me.
Yeah. Fantastic. So we're just coming. I've just got two more questions for you.
Yeah,
How do you measure success? That's my first question.
yeah. Oh, um, growth for me. So, doing more of what we're doing, new countries, hence the reason why I've moved to New York, that for me, that's success. But I can honestly say, I don't think I'll ever be fulfilled. I wish that I thought I would be, but I've sort of resigned myself to the fact that I don't think I'll ever be like, okay, you've done it now. That's not something that's ever going to compute in my head ever. I'll always want to do more. I want to
Mhm.
more. I want to be better. I want others around me to get opportunities that they can be their best, and their best. One thing I've had to learn as well is, what success for me isn't always success for other people, even if they're working with me to get to what my success is. Do you know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
use words like KPIs and stuff like that, but their sign of success might be just having an enjoyable day and going home at the end of it. Whereas I have to
Yeah.
build something bigger, and I'm starting to learn the different parts of success, and for my kids to grow up and lead happy lives and not go through some of the crap that I did. They need a little bit of crap in their lives just to make sure that they're resilient to the world. Do you know what I mean? But there's some pointless stuff, there's some underprivileged stuff, or just institutional racism that we can get rid of, together, me and you on podcasts and me and my clients in advertising. So, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. And my last question is, do you either have like three golden rules or three kind of golden rules to live by, or a motto that sums it all up?
Um, you don't ask anyone to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. And in business, if you're going to continue to, my second one. So don't ask anybody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. That's number one. Number two is
Hmm.
know when to step aside. Other people can grow your business faster than you. I've just done it. I've gone to chairman, and it took me a while to understand it and to realize, what, being the CEO, I like to build things, but being a CEO it's a bit more than that, and, when you're constantly trying to build stuff, you might not be creating the best culture, because you're just always running, full steam ahead. And I've already said, problems, sometimes it's not best to bulldoze through everything in life. So yeah, know as a leader, know when to step aside. And actually, can I loop back? I've got another hero as well, actually, just on that.
Oh, yeah.
Ben Francis from Gymshark. So he literally has just took over being CEO, in the last year. Yet he's built a $1.5 billion company by just, stepping aside, bringing in another CEO and letting them build his business for him. Now he's took over it. He's a bloody billionaire as a 27-year-old, which I hate him for. But but how clever is that for a kid? And I hope he doesn't mind me calling him a kid. Being that young to and he's 27 now. He was much younger when he made that decision to know when to step aside. He went away. He did the right way of what I'm doing the reverse of. I'm going to go away and learn how to be a CEO, and then I might come back and take the reins again or move on to something else. He sort of went away, learned it, and then said, "Okay, I'm ready. Give me my job and my company back now." Like, how awesome is that? Yeah, he's a bit of a hero.
Mm, yeah. Okay, and number 3, you've given me 2. Is there a third one? A
Oh,
third rule or
um, try make time for the things that you enjoy. Like, and my third rule is probably the one that everybody that knows me and listening to this is like, what is he talking about? He never does that. It's a rule that I'm building into myself now, because you could get so focused on it, the company, even the fuzz around it, the privilege of being able to speak at lots of places and to tell your story and to talk through the pains, things that were trauma and all of that. But really, you can start to lose sight of who's around you, not spend enough time with your kids, not spend enough time with
mm,
your partner, etc. And like I said, when when no, touch wood, if it all did go wrong, they're the ones you're going to fall back to, and they're going to make life just as rich as it was when you were rich, the family
yeah,
and friends.
yeah.
So, yeah, I would say the third one is to make time, and I'm working on that.
Yeah, wonderful. Chris, it's been so wonderful to speak to you. If anybody wants to find out more about you or more about your company or more about, maybe having you as a speaker and all that kind of thing, where should they go? Where should they find you?
LinkedIn's probably the easiest one, isn't it? Just Chris Kenna on LinkedIn, or wearebrandadvance.com for the company.
We, okay, I'll make sure those 2 things are in it. But listen, I love your story. I totally, if there's any drama producers out there or writers, I think this story needs to make the silver screen or the big screen. Who would you want to play you, Chris?
Ooh, someone very handsome. Don't know. Haven't. Who would I want to? Oh, I know. Oh, God, I'm really bad with names though. But he's the guy from London that was in Star Wars. Um, the young black guy.
I'm bad with Star Wars. Which one? Oh, John
Yeah,
John
Boyega.
Boyega.
Boyega. Yeah, he'll do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, fantastic. Listen, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been hugely entertaining, inspirational, and informative. So thank you so much for taking the time. And I look forward to. Hey, listen, there's probably going to be part 2 of the movie, right? So you're in. This is only the first part. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next.